Hi, I am Mahmoud Magdi, and welcome to the class on Introduction of AJAX Requests. Let's imagine that you want to visit a website. When you type in the name of the website into your browser and press enter, what do you expect to happen? The exact answer, of course, depends on the website, but it's safe to say that you expect to see, well, some website to show up very quickly. And have you noticed how the next page button has mostly disappeared from the internet? Modern websites can load content without reloading. Developers have solved the challenge of loading information quickly and after the first page render in many ways. And one flexible and popular implementation relies on AJAX requests, which allow for data to be received asynchronously. Data that loads asynchronously can be requested late in the load process, and the website should load acceptably with or without it. You know what? Let's take a look at it. First, start with what a request is. It's actually pretty useful to imagine the internet as a bunch of people who are just simply sending messages back and forth. For this example, I'll be the client, which means that I'm actually browser like Chrome or Firefox, and another person I call Jessie represents the internet. She is the middleman and will be passing information back and forth. And another person I called Kim here is the server, which means that he is a computer dedicated to providing content to browser like me. If I want something from Ben, I'll send a GET request to Kim. A GET request is a message that tells him who I am and what I want. So, got my message, Jesse takes it and passes it to Kim. Kim, the server, looks at my message and then sends back what I requested. This is called a response. I can open the response and then do something with it. In order for a website to open, it performs many requests for data, like Kim and I are doing right now. Most of the time, the response is critical for the page to load. For instance, I must have Kim's HTML to load the page and the CSS to lay it out. When your browser makes a request synchronously or without AJAX, it has to wait for responses before proceeding with the load. AJAX is special because it allows these types of requests asynchronously, which means that they can happen in the background without blocking the rest of the page load. Let's take this analogy just a little bit further. Let's imagine I send off a GET request to Cam, but I have got some plans in mind for what I want to do with it when the response gets back. So, when I send off the request, I take the instructions and set them aside for myself, and they will patiently wait right here. And now I'm free to go off and work on other tasks. When Kim's response eventually gets back, I'll open up the response, take a look at my instructions, and then do something with them. These instructions that I set aside are called a callback. In that, I call them when I get a response back. Now we will see the outline. I will explain it in this session. First, what does AJAX stand for? Next, what is AJAX? Next, how it works. Next, the internet standards it's based on. And next, advantage or disadvantage of AJAX. And uses for AJAX. And conclusion or summary. And last point is references. Okay, let's answer the first question. What does AJAX stand for? AJAX stands for Asynchronous JavaScript and XML Request. For now, let's just think of it as an asynchronous JavaScript request. AJAX requests allow for content retrieval and display without reloading the web page. Asynchronous in AJAX refers to the fact that the request doesn't block other events from happening. Instead, the page keeps on doing its thing and then only acts on the data when it gets returned by the server. AJAX requests occur in a number of different ways and with varying levels of difficulty. Some requires an API, others use OAuth, and some doesn't use any authentication at all. And the data returned by a different AJAX request differs too. X in AJAX stands for XML, which used to be the dominant hierarchical data format. But today, JSON is much more popular. In fact, most AJAX requests nowadays are actually a GET request, standing for asynchronous JavaScript and JSON request. But it doesn't sound as nice, so we still just call them AJAX. Embedded within AJAX responses, it's pretty common to see HTML, which websites can use to fill in part of page. Okay, the second question, what is AJAX? AJAX, not a language itself. AJAX is not a programming language or a tool, but a concept. AJAX is a group of related existing technologies combined together or technique to make web pages feel more responsive. AJAX makes interactive web pages by providing a way for the web page to interact with the server. AJAX is a framework. AJAX is a client-side script that communicates to and from a server and web and database without the need for a postback or a complete page refresh. The best definition I have read for AJAX is the method for exchanging data with the server and updating parts of a web page without reloading the entire page. AJAX itself is mostly a generic term for various JavaScript techniques used to connect to a web server dynamically without necessarily loading multiple pages. In a more narrow defined sense, it refers to the use of XML HTTP request objects to interact with a web server dynamically via JavaScript. The third question, how it works. Let's take a look at this picture that explain the relation between the browser and the server and the internet is the middleman. Okay, here AJAX allows web pages to be updated as asynchronously by exchanging small amounts of data with the server behind the scenes. Now discuss the important part and its implementation. For implementation AJAX, only be aware of XML HTTP request object. Now, what actually it is? It's an object used to exchange data with the server behind the scenes. Try to remember the paradigm of OOP, which says that object communicates through calling methods, or in general sense message passing. The same case applied here as well. Usually create this object and use it to call the methods which result in effective communication. All modern web browsers support the XML request object. In the browser, there is an event occurs. Create an XML HTTP request object. Send HTTP request through the internet. Through the internet, passes it to the server. In the server, it processes HTTP request, create a response, and send data back to the browser. The response sent to the browser through the internet. Here at the last in the browser, process the returned data using JavaScript and update page content based on internet standards. This is the third point. First, XHTML or HTML and CSS. This is used to display the data. Second, JavaScript, XML HTTP request calls. This used for exchange data asynchronously with the server. The third point is XML. This is used to transfer the data. Fourth point, DOM, Document Object Model. This is used to navigate the hierarchy of XHTML elements. Let's explain all these elements. The first element is XHTML and CSS. Elements are identified in the XHTML code that will be worked with by the JavaScript. These provide the visual layout and structure for how the XML data will be displayed, performed on the client machine. CSS provides the styling, allows for a clear separation of the presentation style from the content and may be changed programmatically by JavaScript. The element is JavaScript and XML HTTP request. This provides connection between the XHTML elements and how they behave. It sends XML HTTP requests on demand when the user creates events. It handles the events both from the user and the replies from the server, and can parse XML data and map it to data objects needed in the JavaScript. And this updates the XHTML elements as needed. And it's a loosely typed scripting language. And the JavaScript function is called when an event occurs in a page. As we said, it's a glue for the whole AJAX operation. The XML part provides format for data transfer between the JavaScript and the server. DOM, two DOMs involved, one for the elements in the XHTML and one for the elements in the XML file. The DOM defines the logical structure of the documents. It can be used by any programming language and used for navigating around the tree structure. It provides quick access for changing and modifying elements. The DOM API for accessing and manipulating structured documents. It represents the structure of XML and HTML documents. Now, let's take XML HTTP request. It object used for fetching and returning data. It can be synchronous or asynchronous. AJAX uses it asynchronously. It allows the web pages to get more data from the server incrementally and asynchronously while the user is doing other things. Examples are Gmail, which continuously asks the server for new mail, and Google Maps, which update only the new parts of a map when the user mouses or clicks on a new point. It's a JavaScript object that performs asynchronous interaction with the server. Next, advantage of AJAX. First one is interactivity. Asynchronous transmission of data back and forth. Second one is bandwidth usage. It's a smaller payload and it saves memory when the data is fetched from the same page. The third point is encourage modularization, like functions and data sources, structure, and style. AJAX allows non-related technologies to work together, like server-side languages, databases, client-side language, etc. Next, disadvantages. First of it, difficult. It's difficult to debug because it's asynchronous. And search engines can index or optimize. And the third one, browsers handle XHR differently. Internet Explorer didn't have a native one till version 7, presently on version 9. Back button and bookmarks may not work as expected. May experience response time, latency problems if there are many frequent updates. The next point is uses for AJAX. Uses for AJAX is many. And the first of it's real-time form data validation when server-side information is required. And auto-completion, again, when the server-side info from a database, for example, is needed. Sophisticated user interface controls and effects such a progress bar. And the last point is getting current data without reloading a whole page or a full page. Okay, next. These are web examples that uses AJAX. AJAX is everywhere. To demonstrate it, let's briefly mention a few popular sites which take advantage of it. First, consider how Facebook and Twitter work. As you scroll down, new content appears thanks to AJAX. Second, when you vote or downvote a question or an answer on Stack Overflow, an AJAX call is triggered. Finally, as soon as you search for something on Google or YouTube, multiple AJAX requests are executed. Furthermore, if you want, we can monitor the requests. For example, in Chrome's console, we do so by right-clicking and checking the log XML HTTP request option. And the last conclusion, uh, in the conclusion, 2 points. Ajax is a technique for creating fast, dynamic, responsive web pages, as we said, and Ajax applications are browser and platform independent, as we said. And the last is the references. Let's take a look at it to gain more information and see more examples by code. And thanks for watching.